You ever been to a super cool bar where it had like a monitor that had all like the menu and the drink specials, and there was like a video going on, and it just looked really cool and it was really impressive? Well, I have. I was actually recently in Charleston, South Carolina at a bar, and they had basically an LCD screen that had all their menus and their lunch specials and their drink specials. And I thought, that's really cool. I really wish I could do that in my bar. I'm not at a random bar. Actually, in my basement, I actually built the bar behind me, but I wanted to snazz it up a little bit with some what we call digital signage. That's what I'm talking about, is the ability to have our display anything you want on a screen. And you can do this at a restaurant. You've probably seen this done at hotels for a convention where all the sessions are in different conferencing rooms and it lists where it's at. Or you've probably seen this at an airport where all the flights and the luggage is at. That's digital signage. Someone or something is controlling what's displayed on those screens. And I wanted to take a minute to let you know that Zoom actually has digital signage. It's actually included with the Zoom Rooms license. And when I say digital signage, I mean for everything. One Zoom Room license gives you unlimited digital signage. So I wanted to try Zoom Room digital signage in my bar, and I wanted to showcase how easy it is to do and showcase how I built my own Zoom Room digital signage here. So what we're going to do is we're going to walk through my bar and show you where I put it, and then I'm going to actually show you how I installed it. And this isn't all just nerd stuff. There's some construction involved. So it's going to be like watching HDTV a little bit in the first part of the video. And the second part of the video, I'm going to walk through how I configured my Zoom Room digital signage. So let's take a little tour. So we're going to switch from the DSLR camera to my iPhone camera so I could walk you over to the digital signage that I just built. But in the meantime, you can see this is my production studio today. My lights and my mic and my other key light. So let's just walk over and see what we got here. All right. So I spend a lot of time here because I have buddies over. We watch the game, hang out, have a couple of cocktails. But I also spend a lot of time here because you're going to recognize this room. This is where I do all my Zoom production and my Zoom meetings. So as you can imagine, 90% of my time is spent down in the basement, and I wanted a cool basement to hang out with. What I'm about to show you is my digital signage that I built with the Zoom rooms. And you can see, obviously, I have TVs all around, but I wanted a cool way to display like what's on the menu if I'm cooking something, or what drink specials that we have. So I did this. The entrance to my room is covered by this big barn door right here. And when I have parties or have guys over, I just shut the door. So when I shut the door, I wanted to reveal something cool. Let's see it. I'm just gonna sit down and hang out and close the door. Hidden behind the door is my Zoom Room digital signage. And what I did was I built, and I'll show you in the video, I'll show you how I built this flush into the wall with this custom frame and this menu. I actually designed the menu on Canva, and you can see it's pretty cool. It's the Kelley bar. So now you want to see how I built it? Let's go. All right, so the first thing I had to do was obviously pick the place where I was going to install the Zoom Rooms digital signage. I kind of knew where I wanted it because I wanted it in the center between the wall on the left side and the barn door when it was fully closed. So I measured the center and I picked my spot, and then I held the monitor up to that spot and just traced it with a pencil. And then I went back and used a Dremel tool to cut it out. The problem being is that I have no idea what's on the other side of this panel where I'm going to cut out. So I had used my stud finder to find a stud in the middle, but I didn't know what kind of obstacle I was going to tackle beyond that. I was just hoping it was just a simple 2x4 and I can cut it out, but that's not what happened. So once I removed the drywall panel, I was left with this mess. As you can see, it is not a 2x4. If you can't see, it is two 2x6s, which to me means that's a load-bearing wall. my worst nightmare. Because now I can't just simply cut that out. I literally have to reframe that entire wall, or at least that section of it, so I can keep that load-bearing wall stable. So you can also see some cross members there. Those have to be removed as well, because I have to have that TV fit into this space. So that's the next project. We literally have to cut out both of those 2x6s and then reframe this entire section. Okay, I got the 2x6s out. I got the cross members out. I've relocated them on the bottom. Next, and I didn't take a picture of it, I'm sorry, I literally have to run a new header across that load-bearing pillar and then connect it to the other pillars on the other side, both left and the right. I'm sorry I didn't take a picture of that. I totally forgot. It took me a few hours to do, but just know that we reframed everything, and now that load-bearing wall has been dispersed to the other pillars as well, and now we're free to go forward. Also, you probably noticed the electrical Romex cables there. These are okay there. There's a slight adjustment because they're about halfway through the 2x6 and I need about 4 inches of clearance. So all I did was drill another hole into that 2x6 and push those backwards. They're fine where they're at. So before I rebuild the headers and relocate the cross panels, I certainly want to see if the monitor is even going to fit in this space. So I just did a quick test fit to see if it works. And shockingly, my measurements work. It fits perfectly. So what I didn't tell you is that any digital signage requires some sort of computer to program or to upload photos or videos and then upload that to the display. Something we have to install beside the TV, obviously, is a NUC, or a next unit of computing. It's basically a small form factor computer. And on the left side, there's plenty of space. I'm installing that NUC on this left side. It was a little NUC. I'm going to actually put it on the screen right now that I got from Amazon. I think it was $130. And that's going to run our Zoom room compute and memory. So we're going to connect that computer to the network, obviously here locally, and then we're going to configure that to display all the images and the videos that I'm going to show you on this display, obviously later on in this video. So know that that's going in as well. And I put that on the left side. I didn't take a video of it because I forgot. So now we've installed the electrical behind the monitor, as well as installed our NUC on the left side like we talked about. So now we need to mount the monitor inside of this area that we created. And what I'm going to do is I'm not going to do a regular TV mount or an LCD mount because obviously there's drywall behind it. But I wanted to do is what they call a pressure mount. Since we've reframed this entire thing, there's literally wood around this entire square. We can pressure mount this with wooden shims, and we're going to put shims all over the outside of this monitor because it's really actually a really light monitor. I think it weighs like 4 pounds. It doesn't need a lot of support to mount it in there. We can do that with these pressure shims and then push this monitor into the seams of the frame that we created. And that's a way easier way of mounting it. Plus, I really don't have a way to get behind it to mount it anyway. So this method worked best for me. And again, it's really light, so it doesn't take a ton of pressure. So we'll just align all these shims to this monitor, make sure obviously that it's completely level. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a Dremel tool and cut all these shims off so they're all flush with the TV. You're not going to see any of this stuff. I'm going to make it look a little bit pretty with a custom frame we're going to do in another video. Okay, now that we have everything level, everything's perfectly shimmed, we probably need to turn it on and test it and see if it works. Hopefully my electrical job is sufficient and we can fire it up. I actually already fired up the computer, so I actually already know the electrical's on. Let's turn it on, and now we need to probably do a whole bunch of updates to the TV, a bunch of software. That's you know how it works when you get a new TV. You do a bunch of updates and install everything. This is actually an Amazon Roku TV, so I can actually, if I wanted to watch TV, I could, but I have plenty of other TVs I use already, so I don't need this TV. It's purely for digital signage. All right, so now that we've reframed everything, we've installed the computer, we've installed the monitor, we need to just clean some stuff up because we need to make it look pretty now. So I'm just gonna wipe all the dust off the wall, all the drywall dust from the Dremel tool, all the wood shavings from cutting the shims. And now we need to repair some holes in the wall that I made when I was doing this. So we're just gonna respackle everything and get everything looking really nice so we can install our frame. Okay, now that our spackle's dry, if you've done any drywall repair, you know your favorite part is sanding all that stuff smooth. It creates a ton of dust. So I literally just try to bring a vacuum and vacuum as much dust as I can. Anything else, I'll just wipe off. So let's get everything ready for paint and let's go to the next step. All right, so our spackle's done. We've cleaned up everything. Now we're ready for paint. And we're just going to touch up the spots that we obviously spackled over and make it look really pretty. We want to get ready for our next step, which is basically to make that custom frame to go around that monitor. Now we need to custom make the frame that we're going to put around, obviously, this digital signage, because you don't want to see any gaps or the ugly shims that we put in there. We want to make it look real pretty. So what I did was I went to Lowe's, got a 1/2 inch by 4 inch piece of wood, and I stained it with Minwax. I think the color is called ebony. I pre-stained the whole thing. It's just easier that way instead of staining it while it's on the wall. And then I just framed the outside of the monitor. You can see, obviously, I sanded all the pieces so it looks really good. And then I framed it, obviously, from the top and the sides. The part of the bottom is kind of a little bit trickier because the TV does have an infrared sensor. And if I covered it up with framing, I wouldn't be able to turn on or turn off the TV or use it in any way. So what I did was I measured where the infrared sensor is, and I actually drilled a hole through that bottom part of the frame. You can see that there's a little hole there. That's really the only reason I have it there. Obviously, I nailed everything into place with my DeWalt nail gun. And then once that was all done, the frame was all done. So once the frame's all nailed up and the holes drilled and everything looks good, I go back with wood putty and I putty over all the nail holes and I putty on the corners to make sure there's no seams or gaps or holes. And this nail putty is not hardening, so it's best to take off the rest of it with just a scraper. And you can see I just scraped all the rest of it off, just so it's a nice flush finish. And then I get it all clean, and then I'm ready to stain it one more time just to have a really good coat. And I'll think I'll do that in the next step. Okay, so we're ready just for final stain. I've cleaned up all the putty off of there, kind of just wiped it off. And then we're just gonna use the same stain that we pre-stained it with that Minwax ebony. And we're gonna go over it with one more coat just to solidify that black color that make it really look really nice. Then you just wait like 5 minutes, 10 minutes maybe, and then you just wipe off the excess. It's an oil-based stain, so it takes a while to dry. So once that's done, I think it's ready to rock and roll. You can see I already have the Tattoo Nerd logo playing on the Zoom Room Digital Signage. I think it turned out great. Actually, just to make sure, because I should have tested this before, I wanted to make sure the barn door actually closed over the frame. I kind of knew it would, but I kind of had to test it. So this is the final product, the Kelley Bar Zoom Room Digital Signage project that I did last weekend, and hopefully you enjoyed how I did it from a construction basis. The next video, we're actually going to go through exactly how I configured everything from the Zoom Room side, and we're also going to go through how I designed this video in Canva. I think it turned out great. Obviously, I have a bit of a biased opinion, but it's a really cool addition to my bar downstairs and really shows you the power of Zoom Digital Signage. So digital signage requires two pieces of equipment. Obviously, a monitor to display all your information, and second, a NUC, or a next unit of computing. It's a fancy term for just a small computer. And this is a NUC. I got it on Amazon for like $130. It's nothing special. You don't need a lot of power to display Zoom Room Digital Signage. And it comes with your standard USB 3 ports here. You got some couple of USB 2 ports here and a couple of HDMI cables here and an Ethernet cable. That's all you need. Also, there's built-in wireless with this thing. You could totally run a Zoom Room off of this thing. You could plug a keyboard, a mouse, you could put peripherals like your mic and your speakers and your camera all into it, but we're not using it for that. We're only using it to display information. So the only thing we're going to use is the HDMI out on this NUC. And this came pre-built with Windows 11, but we have to do some configuration before we can actually deploy it. And the cool things about NUCs is they're really small. You can literally hide them anywhere, but the better you hide them, the harder they are to access. So think about that when you're doing your digital signage. If you saw the first half of this video, you know I hid my NUC behind the monitor, so I have zero access to it once everything's up and running. And that's cool if you're never going to touch it, but there's going to be problems at some point, right? You're going to want to update it. The power might go out. You have to think for all these contingencies, because if you can't get to it, you can't power it on and you can't configure it and you can't fix it. So let's figure out how we can get around all those obstacles. So the first obstacle is obviously connecting to the NUC from the outside. You have no keyboard and no mouse connected to this NUC, so you have no way to actually log into it. So you're going to have to figure out how to remotely get into that NUC to configure it, update it, and maintain it throughout time. And you can do that with Windows 11 because it has remote desktop. So that's the first thing we got to do. We got to turn on remote desktop to this NUC. That way, from another computer in your network, we can configure and log in to that NUC. The second big obstacle to overcome is a power outage, right? There's a power button on this thing, but when it's behind the monitor, I'm not going to have access to touch that power button. So I need to be able to configure this NUC to automatically power on should there be a power outage or a power cycle. That way, again, I don't have to hit the power button. It just knows to turn itself on. The third thing we're going to have to do is automatically log on once it powers on. With any computer, right? You power on or power cycle the laptop or your desktop, you have to physically log on to your desktop or your laptop. We don't want to do that with this thing. We want it to power on and automatically log on with an account. So that's the third thing we're going to have to configure. The fourth thing we're going to have to configure is a static IP. This might get a little nerdy, but you network engineers will like this one. A static IP is a static mapping of the IP address of this computer. Everything connected to the internet has an IP address. And most of the time it just gets that automatically. We call that DHCP. What DHCP does is it gives out automatic IP addresses to anything that logs on to your internal network or external network. You're going to get a public one or private one. This gets a little nerdy, I understand. But in your internal network at your house, you're going to get an internal DHCP IP address, and it's completely automatic. Every time you log on with a new device, you're going to get a new IP address. That's great if you don't care, like your phone or your TVs. But once we have this set, we need to statically map that IP address so it gets the same IP address every time. No DHCP involved. We're going to statically map it because when we want to log on to this NUC, we want to know the exact address it's going to have. So we have to statically map that IP address, and that's the fourth thing we're going to do. We'll do some other stuff that you could typically do with a new computer, but those are the four key things you're going to have to do before you can even install Zoom Rooms Digital Signage. So let's walk through them one by one. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is set up the NUC to power on automatically should there be a power failure, i.e. you had to trip a circuit breaker to work on something, lightning strikes, whatever it might be. It's going to shut off at some point and you want it to automatically log on. Most computers are set to not log on automatically on a power failure. You don't want this to happen because remember, your NUC is going to be hidden. You're not going to probably be able to just go and switch the power on. You want this to automatically happen yourself. The problem with setting this is it's not a Windows OS setting. It is a BIOS setting. So you're going to have to get super nerdy and go into the BIOS of your individual computer and do it from there. It is not easy to get to. It's not intuitive. You're going to have to hunt a little bit, but let's just walk you through it. The most primitive and archaic way to set up the BIOS is to literally plug in a corded keyboard and a corded mouse. The problem is, I bet none of you have those things. I don't have a corded USB keyboard or corded USB mouse either, so I tried to use my Bluetooth USB keyboard and mouse, but for some reason it wouldn't recognize it on boot, so I could never get into the BIOS just hitting F2. So for those of you that want to do it the old school way, if you have a corded mouse and a corded keyboard with USB, plug them both in and then boot up your NUC and hit F2. That'll take you to the BIOS. Once you're in the BIOS, you can make the change. But for those of you that probably don't have that, there's a way to do it in Windows. And I'm going to show you how to do it. First, let me put my glasses on so I can actually see the screen here. Okay, you can start making fun of me now because I don't know how to screen mirror or screen capture or screen record from a BIOS. I'm sure there's a way to do it. I just don't know what it is and I don't really feel like looking it up. So I'm just going to put my iPhone in front of the screen and record the screen and we can get through it. I promise it's going to be okay. And for those of you that do know how to do that, just maybe comment below and let me know how to do it. I'll learn later on. But for now, we're just going to screen record with the camera. So here's my Zoom Room Digital Signage. I need to get out of here and into the BIOS mode. And let's just go ahead and show you how to do that. We're going to go to start and then we're going to go to restart. But before we push restart, we're going to hold the shift key down and then hit restart. This will restart us into a troubleshooting mode inside of Windows that we can get to the BIOS. So let's go ahead and do that. And then it'll reboot with the BIOS option. Okay, now we're in to choose an option and we want to go to the troubleshoot menu inside of Windows. And then we want to go to the advanced options inside of Windows. Now we want to go to the BIOS setting. It's not called BIOS, it's called UEFI. Click that, and then it's going to say, hey, do you want to restart to change the firmware settings on this computer? And you hit restart, and you'll then go into the BIOS setting on the next menu. Okay, now this is going to look super complicated, and don't be afraid. We just need to find one setting and one setting only. Unfortunately, every BIOS looks a little different, so you're going to maybe have to hunt a little bit for your particular BIOS. This is from an American Megatrends, or AMI. This is the BIOS for AMI. Intel probably has another one. AMD might have another one. But the point is, it's going to be a boot option or a power option. And here it's called the boot option. We're going to go to the boot menu to find the BIOS setting. Unfortunately, the screen's a little cut off on the right and left side. I don't know why you can't do this inside the BIOS, but regardless, if you look at the left side, it's going to say power setting or boot configuration in my BIOS. But you can see it says specify what state to go into when the power is reapplied after a power failure. The G3 state is the default. You do not want this state. The G3 state is basically once the power goes off, the power stays off until you manually push the power on button. You don't want this. This is the default. We want to change this. So when we go over to the options, we're going to see two choices, an SO state or an S5 state. S1 through 4 are kind of sleepy states or semi-powered on states. We want none of those. We want to go right to S0, which is automatic power on after a power off. Choose SO if you have that option. If you don't, it might say something like power on automatically or power after reapplied power, whatever that might say. Choose that option. And then once you've chosen the option, we have to save and exit. We need to save that BIOS. And once you save the BIOS and hit yes, it's going to restart into that mode. So I wanted to switch the camera view to show you the actual NUC and that it's powered on. You can see that it's powered on because it's blue. So now let's test and see if our BIOS setting actually took effect. So I've basically mimicked a power outage. I've basically just unplugged the whole computer. And now we're going to just apply the power back in. And look what happens. It glows blue, meaning that it's automatically powering on through this cycle. The NetBIOS setting worked. And now it's going to go through the power cycle, launch Zoom Rooms and launch my digital signage. And it's doing it exactly what it's supposed to do. Okay, next we want to set up a local account on the Windows 11 NUC that allows that local account to log on automatically upon restart or reboot. Again, this is for entrepreneurs or small businesses or home users. You're not going to do this in an enterprise. You're going to have a lot more IT security and compliance. We're not talking about you guys. We're talking about really small businesses that probably don't have a gigantic IT staff to handle all this stuff. They're probably one IT nerd, or maybe it's the owner of the company that has to do all the IT stuff. Here's how you do it. When you actually booted up the NUC for the very first time in Windows 11, it asks you for a username and or a password, and you created a username, and that might be a Microsoft account that you created. If you use that, we're going to need another one. We're going to need a local account on the machine. I'm not going to walk you through how to create an account for Windows 11. There's plenty of YouTube videos and white papers on how to do that. We're going to assume you've already got a local account or a Microsoft account on the machine, and now we're going to have to set that account to log on automatically. Here's how you do it. And the account you created when you logged on for the first time to Windows 11 is the account we can use for your Zoom Rooms, but it's better if you just create a local account. If you don't know how to create a local account, just Google local accounts on Windows 11 and it'll walk you through the steps. This is beyond this video. So let's just go to the Windows 11 NUC and I'll show you how I did it. This isn't really super complicated. There's literally a white paper that shows you how to do it. I'm literally reading it right from the white paper. So here's how you do it. Go to Start Run, just type in run. You'll see the run command here, and you're just going to run this right here. You're going to type in this command, NETPLWIZ. This is going to open up the local accounts on your machine. So type that in and then hit OK. Now in the white paper, you can clearly see it says users must enter a username and password to use this computer. There's an option there. You just uncheck it or check it. That way you can force the user to have to enter or not enter their password and username. I didn't have this option. I'm not sure why. I really haven't investigated it. So I had to use a different option using regedit. So if you have that option, just uncheck it so the user does not have to log on to a Windows 11 machine. That way that user will automatically log on to your Zoom Rooms Room's digital signage machine upon reboot. So now you fix the power upon reboot, and now you fix the logon upon reboot. So as I said, I didn't have the option to uncheck or check users can automatically log on. I actually had to use a harder method, which is regedit. If you've never used regedit, you should be scared. It can screw up everything. But in case you want to tackle it, here's what you do. Again, go to run regedit, regedit, open up regedit. It'll warn you saying, hey, do you want to allow this app to make changes? Unfortunately, you have to hit yes. And then it's going to open up regedit. And here's where you need to go. The computer, HKey local machine, software, Microsoft, Windows NT, current version, Windows logon. That'll take you to the exact registration key that you need to set manually to make this account be able to auto log on. So you can see right here, and I don't even care, I'll blur it out. There's actually 3 different registry settings you're gonna have to set. Auto admin logon by default will be 0. You need to change that to 1. That way it turns it on. The second one is the default username that you want to automatically log on to your Zoom Room digital signage. Mine is admin. Then you're going to have to type in the default password that account uses to log on. Once you do that, those keys will be set, and now you can be able to automatically log on. And you can test that just by restarting your Nook, and it should automatically log on for you. And if it doesn't, fix these variables. You got them wrong. Now we have to configure RDP on this machine. Remember, remote desktop. And what that does is it allows you to log into your Zoom Room's digital signage Nook from another computer. That way, if your Nook is hidden behind a wall or behind a monitor that you can't get to it, you can just log on from another computer. So let's turn on remote desktop. So to do that, go to open up settings, which is right here. Go to this blue Windows thing, go to settings. Then you're gonna go to system over here. Scroll down till it says, so scroll down to remote desktop. Over here, you're gonna have connect and use this PC from another device using the remote desktop app. Check that to make sure it's on. This is the name that other PCs will be able to know you as. This is called Zoom Rooms. Then select what users have the ability to access this app. By default, the admin has access, but you can add other local users that have access. If you're a small business or a home user, you probably only have that one account that you set up. It's already an admin. It'll already have access. It even says it right here. Admin already has access. Okay, the next thing we need to do is statically map the IP address to this machine. That way it's the same IP address every time we remotely access this machine. And here's how to find out your actually IP address that you have now. Might as well use it. Your DHCP server has already given you this IP address and no one else is using it. When I say DHCP server, it's probably your local Wi-Fi router. It has DHCP on it by default. That's where you're getting your IP address. So come into search, hit command, and you'll have a command prompt, and just click that. It'll open up the command prompt and hit IP config. If you scroll down, you're going to see an IP address, 192.168.86.250. That's the IP address of this machine. That's the IP address we want to statically map to this Windows 11 device. So in order to statically map that address, let's go to system settings again. So again, settings, network and internet. You are on a private network if you're on your internal network at your home. So click on properties. Right here, it says private network. Down here, it says IP assignment. By default, this is set to automatic with DHCP. We don't want to use that. We want to drop this down to manual. Now it's going to be able to IPv4 versus IPv6. If you know which one this is, great. You're way smarter than most people. It's IPv4, by the way. So now pull up your config that we just had from ipconfig and copy all these variables right here into the static mapping. 192.168.86.250. Default mask 255, 255, 255, 0. Gateway 192.168.86.1. Then hit save. And when you hit save, you're going to get an error. I did that on purpose so you would pay attention. So your DNS server is domain naming server. It's a complicated way of saying, hey, every IP address is known by a number, but that's not how we know things. We know things by a name. So when you type in youtube.com, you're really typing in the DNS name. That's mapped to an IP address in the public internet. The same thing on your network. Your Zoom Room is going to be known by Zoom Rooms, but it needs a DNS server to resolve that name. So by default in your local network, it's going to be the same thing as your gateway. So just type that in. And when you do that, you're going to get a network blip. So it's going to reconnect to that address. You have it statically mapped, so you're going to automatically connect to your Zoom Room digital sign. So don't be worried, it's going to click off, but it'll click back on. So all of our Windows configs are done and we're ready to install Zoom Rooms. But before that, I want to show you how to actually use remote desktop. So you can log onto your Zoom Room Nook from anywhere, whether it's in your internal network or if you're really fancy, you can actually get it to work externally. But 99% of the time, you're probably just going to log onto it from a local network. So here's how you get that to work. So this is on an Apple computer and I'll show you the Windows one next. If you're on an Apple computer trying to log onto your Zoom Room, you're going to need to go to the Apple Store and get Windows app. It's right here in my application. So once you download Windows app, just go ahead and launch it. Now, nothing's going to be in here. It's a brand new app. So we need to add in our Zoom Room. So remember that static IP you just configured? We're going to use it now. So go to devices and then hit add. And we're going to add a PC. So if you have DNS locally and you can resolve names, great. You can type in the name of your computer here or your Zoom Room here. I do have it configured locally, but I haven't updated it to include the Zoom Room name. So I'm just going to use the IP address that I configured. 192.168.86.250. Now add. So now we've successfully added the Zoom Room to this saved PC and just double click on it. So now it's going to prompt you for credentials. Remember that local account we just configured in the previous step? Use that account and password here to log on to your Zoom Room. So it works. We've now connected to the Zoom Room using Windows 11, and we can now configure anything we want right from this remote session, even though I'm on a Mac. I'm literally logged in like I would be locally if I had a keyboard and a mouse and a monitor connected to the Nook. I'm just using my Apple Mac to log in remotely. So this is how you're going to administer your local Zoom Room machine and how we're going to do the rest of the steps in this video. So if you're on a Windows 11 machine, here's how you would do the same steps I just did on a Mac. Go to search, look for remote desktop, and here you go, remote desktop connection. And again, it's kind of the same thing. I can just type in the IP address 168.86.250, but I can't really connect to myself because I'm already connected, but you get the point. If you're using Windows 11 or any version of Windows and you want to connect to your Nook, use remote desktop connection client, and it'll do the same thing I just showed you in this demo. Okay, I think that's about it for the Windows config stuff. We are now ready to move on to installing Zoom Rooms and configuring our Zoom Room digital display. So in order to download Zoom Rooms, you need to go to zoom.us/download and download the Zoom Room client. Scroll down until you see it. It'll say Zoom Rooms for conferencing rooms and touchscreens displays. That's what we want. Download. Now open up File Explorer and go to your download section. You're going to see Zoom Rooms right here. Double click on it and you're going to want to hit yes to this, saying access control is allowed. So hit continue. You can read it. I'm not going to. So the next step is Zoom Room wants to ask you all these things to do for you. You can do them manually, but you might as well have the Zoom Room installer do them. And let's just kind of go through them. Disable automatically screen lock after an activity. Why you would do that, right? You don't want a screensaver coming on. Disable password logon after PC wakes from sleep. Again, you don't want it to lock and then have to type in password manually. You're just going to disable that. Disable Cortana. I don't even know who uses that. Disable push notifications. You don't want notifications appearing on your screen. Disables Windows Auto Update. This is obviously so it doesn't automatically update the OS. You can do that yourself. I don't know if you're aware of this, but Microsoft sometimes updates things and they break things. You don't want that to happen. You want to maybe automatically update your machine every 3-6 months, whatever you feel comfortable with. We want the high performance power plan because a lot of power plans by default will shut off with an activity after 30 minutes or an hour, or shut off your monitor after a certain amount of time. You don't want that on. You want your display on all the time. We don't want to hibernate. So after some inactivity, we don't want it to go to sleep. We want it to be on all the time. We never want to put the computer to sleep. That should be obvious by now. We never want to turn off the display. That should be obvious by now. And disable gestures on the edge of the screen. We want all those to be turned off, and Zoom Rooms can do that for you. So hit apply and continue. So in the screen, Zoom would like to enable automatic logon for the system restart failure. We already did that before. Sometimes this doesn't work when I do it with Zoom Rooms, so I like to do this manually as a failsafe. So what Zoom Rooms is doing is literally opening up the user or local accounts that we already did, and you can then manually uncheck the force user logon. But we already did it, so we can skip it and continue. So if you've been around the Microsoft world a long time, you know that sometimes restarting your computer is the safest way to just keep it healthy. So this is just a check to make sure that you want Zoom Rooms to actually do this for you every week. You can schedule it like on a Sunday night when no one's around and just hit continue. Now we're going to install Zoom Rooms. So now you have two options. You can install the Zoom Room app controller like on an iPad or an iPhone and log in this way, or we can do it from the Zoom admin portal with one of the registration keys that you get with your license. I prefer to use digital signage with the admin portal and not with the controller. That way I can control everything. So let's walk through how to do that next. So let's leave the Zoom Room installation for now. We'll get back to it in a second. And now let's go to your Zoom admin portal. That's zoom.com/account. And we're going to go to the settings of Zoom Rooms and configure a new digital signage. So in the left navigation bar, you're going to come down here to Room Management and go to Zoom Rooms. And obviously you're just going to add a new Zoom room. So go over here to the right side where it says add a room. Since we're only using this device for digital signage, we want to add that room type as purely digital signage. So drop this down and do digital signage only. Add whatever name you want, digital signage. And now it's going to ask you if you want to use a calendar service or not. Since this is purely digital signage, you do not need calendar service like you would for a Zoom room where people are booking the rooms and keeping it in the calendar. So you don't need any of that stuff. So hit no calendar service. Now, it's just me in my house, so I have all these locations set up as an example. If you want to do that, great, but you don't have to. You can just leave it wherever it's at default and just go ahead and hit finish. Okay, now look at the right for this activation code. We're actually going to use this activation code to sign in to our digital signage. That way we never have to do it again. In this example, I've actually already created a digital signage for my bar, and we're going to use that to do the rest of the demo. So copy and paste your activation code and go back to your digital signage installation. So as we discussed, we're not pairing it with the controller. We're literally just going to have the Zoom digital signage log in with our activation code. So go up on the top left-hand corner and hit sign in. On the bottom, you see activation code. We're going to copy and paste the activation code from our Zoom admin portal and then hit sign in. Okay, we've successfully signed in to our Zoom digital signage. I've already set up my Zoom digital signage with wallpaper and a video. We're going to do that later on, but now you understand how to log into your Zoom digital signage. Okay, are you proud of yourself? You've completely configured your Zoom digital signage solution. You're done with the setup anyway. You still have to design whatever you want to display, but that's more of a creative process that's completely on you. I'm going to show you how I did my digital signage in Canva, but all the Windows stuff and all the Zoom stuff has been configured. It's that easy. You're completely done. And guess what? You'll never have to do it again. It's all taken care of. You can just sit back and have people enjoy what you come up with your digital sign solution. Okay, your Nook is ready, Windows is ready, Zoom Rooms is ready. Now your creative side comes out. Now you have to design a display, whatever you want to show on the sign. And the digital display can show a picture or it can show a movie. Completely up to you. You can show both. I don't care. It's really what your creative side comes up with, and you can literally do anything. So I'm going to show you what I did, and then you can take over from there. This is just an example of what I came up with for my bar. So let's go down to Kelley's Bar and Tavern. And you can see it says digital signage only. I'm only using it for digital signage. And what we need to do is go into room settings up here. And all this other stuff we don't care about. We only care about digital signage. So this is the video I designed, and I'll show you how to do it in a minute. This is the video that runs continuously 24/7 on my digital signage. Again, you could put any picture here, you could put any video here, up to you. So if you just want to show videos, just literally upload any video you design. You can do that on the bottom, and it says add content, and then choose the file that you want to add. Again, JPEG, PNG, MP4, whatever you want to add. And you can just choose the file, whether it's on your local drive, whether it's on Google or OneDrive, doesn't matter, upload it here. That's how you do it. So once your content's added, it's going to ask you what the play schedule is. And right here, it says daily from February 4th all the time, but you can completely control when videos are played. So for example, say you're a restaurant and you serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You might have 3 different menus. Show a different video every single meal. So you'll have a breakfast video and a lunch video and a dinner video, and then you can set the times accordingly. In this example, I have the same video playing all the time, so I have no end date and it plays all day long. So schedule is appropriate for you. You can also, if you wanted to, you can also hook up a speaker to your movie and have it play. I don't have any sound in my video, so I have it muted, but you can enable the video to play the music or the voiceover, whatever you want in your digital signage. By the way, all the content you upload goes into a libraries. You'll see all the pictures and the videos you design right here, and you can apply them to multiple digital signages. So you don't always have to upload new stuff. It all goes to one library, and then you can just paste it wherever you want. So not only can you upload content like videos and pictures, right? Those are stamped right here and it displays on the digital sign. You can also do video plus content. So right here, go to video and content. Here you can apply videos with content on the side. So for example, say you're a restaurant and you wanted a cool video playing, but you wanted your menu on the right side, you can totally do that as well. So I've already uploaded one video to play on this digital signage solution, but say I wanted to add an image to the right side to play alongside it. Just add an image. And remember, we can go to our content library and not even have to upload anything. What if you're a gigantic University of Colorado fan because you played football there back in the 90s? You can add that to your sign as well. So you can have multiple things like pictures and videos going all at once. And once you're done doing all that content, just save it and you're ready to go. So if you follow the video so far, you know that anytime my Nook starts up, it's going to start up automatically, it's going to log on automatically, and it's going to launch Zoom Rooms automatically. I don't have to touch anything. It literally just does it on its own. So there's zero operational or administration going on right now with my Zoom Room digital signage solution. So from a Zoom perspective, we're done configuring everything that we need for our Zoom Room digital signage. I'm completely hands-free right now and my solution's just going. So the next thing to do is really to be creative and design your own video. I'm going to walk you through how I did mine, but it's completely up to you on how you do yours. So the tool I use to create all my video content for my digital signage is a tool called Canva. And it's really, really cool, and you'll love it once you start learning how to use it. So let's just walk through a quick example of how to create just a quick video for your digital signage. Go to Home, on the top left-hand corner, create a new design. You're just going to create a video. And now there's tons of templates that it already has built into Canva. So if you're a restaurant or a bar or a healthcare facility, just type in the kind of video that you want, and it'll give you some options. So say you're a bar and you want to create a bar menu video. Just type in bar menu. There's a ton of options here. Pick one. And there you go. There's already a pre-built template for you that's showing you a video, and you can actually play it right from here as well. Hit play, and this is the video that would play on your digital signage. Just go in here and adjust it to however you want. So for example, I could put Kelley Bar here. I could change my website to Kelley Bar. I'm sure it's probably already taken, but whatever, you get the point. I can literally edit this however I want. I can go in here and I can make this bigger. I can change the times. I can literally do anything I want as an artist or a content creator. So this is just an easy example of what I can do inside of Canva within seconds from their templates. I think that's it. That's a complete guide to deploying Zoom's digital signage solution for you as an entrepreneur, for a home, for a consumer, for a small business. Now you have all the tools necessary to create a brand new digital signage solution for your company. I hope that was helpful. I hope you learned something. If you did, please leave some comments below. If you really liked it, maybe subscribe to me on YouTube or follow me on LinkedIn. I'm Patrick Kelley, the Tattooed Nerd.